Greetings, nerds. I'm on a quest to find the best gold paint out there, and I'm trying every single brand I can find on the market. Currently, I'm sitting at 35 brands. Hobby paint, craft paints, everything. I'm trying everything I can find. Within reason, okay? Certain brands I'm not going to touch, simply because I know where they're made. For instance, technically speaking, ammo is going to be made by somebody else, and I know exactly what company makes them. That means I don't have to try anything by that company or ammo now, because I've tried ammo, the people that company uses, and everyone else made. However, I still will, because you never know, right? You never know. Also, more content. This will be an ever-evolving list, and to explain the sheet here, these numbers here are the gloss. So I have a gloss meter. These things are excruciatingly expensive, by the way. Some of them can range into thousands and tens thousands. Mine was under 1,000, but let's just say close enough to $1,000. So we can get. It's not a good way to figure out pigmentation, but it's not the worst way. More pigment is going to mean, especially with this stuff, is going to mean more dull, more matte. To some extent, it's not exactly that simple, but we're saying it's that simple just for convenience sake. But as I said, that's not always the case, and that's not really true either. But as I digress, let's talk about some of the paints on here. Now, the top currently for the metal pigment, because metal is separated. True metal, this is a PM2, which is brass powder, or bronze powder. Lascaux Studio Bronze. Lascaux Studio Bronze is phenomenal. It got an 8.4 on the gloss meter, which that's quite high, might I say. Well, that's quite high. Or quite low, I mean. So, yeah, that's the lowest we have is 8.4. The next lowest was Pro Acryl. Now, this also scored the worst because Old Holland got disqualified. Old Holland gets disqualified for a couple reasons. One, their price is just absurdist. Now, these aren't particularly expensive, but you see that little thing right there? That's corrosion. These are brass in unprotected aluminum tubes. That means the paints corrode within the tube. When you put copper, which that's what's in brass, copper and zinc. Same with bronze, copper and zinc, different variations, different loads, sometimes other metals as well, like tin. When you put them in contact with aluminum, they cause something called galvanic corrosion. Galvanic corrosion is going to be this, verdigris, effectively. That bluish, greenish, weird look to things. Now, one thing that you have to remember as well with Lascaux is that it also got the worst because Old Holland, once again, got disqualified from this. You're welcome, Old Holland, so I don't have to embarrass you constantly. The reason why this got the worst is because it expires. It has 2-year shelf life. And that's a strict 2-year shelf life in most cases. This copper I have right here, this is still good, still usable, expired in 2018. Still the best copper I've used by far, but expired in 2018. That's kind of not acceptable to me. And shouldn't be acceptable to anyone to get a bottle like that, especially when you order in 2021. So this stuff sits on the shelf forever because it's not a high volume paint. When you buy it, it's going to be expired most likely. This is the freshest bottle I've ever gotten, and it was $12.23. And I bought this about 6 months ago in 2024. So this was expired. When they go expired, they become very gritty, very uneven. Can you fix it? Kind of. But I don't trust most people to be able to fix it, nor do I think most people can fix it. The majority of people aren't going to be able to do anything about it. I can, but I'm weird and I'm special, or at least that's what. Well, my mother never told me that because she hates me. That's what my psychiatrist tells me, that I'm special. So, yeah, it's not a great paint to buy. If you find a fresh bottle, don't buy a large one. That's the one time I'm going to be saying that. Buy a small one. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg. These bottles are like $20 versus these, which are $30. So unless you're doing large canvases, buy the small ones. And make sure that's the only metal paint you're using that entire year, because you're probably only going to get a year out of it. For the best mica, however, because remember, we're separating mica and true metal, because true metal is always going to come on top. Always looks better. The top one is Turner Acrylic Gouache. I'm not going to discuss what an acrylic gouache is here, but all you have to know is it's like an acrylic paint. It's just a different beast in some ways, and they tend to have higher pigmentation. That's not always the case, and it's very confusing and tricky. That's its own video. Watch that one, and I'll explain what an acrylic gouache is in full. That is the top one. For one, when you thin it with water, it's phenomenal. It looks metallic-y. Thinned right there. Great. Unthinned. Still not bad. But thinned down, that's really, really good. The particle size is super small, so I'm not seeing that weird rainbow reflectance like I see with everything else. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful paint. Nothing but praises for this paint right here. This 250 ml tube, by the way, or bag, this cost me $25 when it was on sale. This stuff goes on sale all the time. Now, it's only sold on Amazon and Jerry's, and the people that ship it from Amazon is Jerry's, Artorama. For the most part. I think some importers might also have it too, but yeah. This right here, perfect. Love it. Best mica one I've used, and I've used a lot of mica ones. The runner-up for that is Pro Acryl. Yes, I am singing praises for Pro Acryl here. Now, Chroma Air would come in second place. However, I don't know if that's genuine metal pigment or not. I have to do some testing, or just call them, see if it's mica or metal pigment. I think it's genuine metal. If it is genuine metal, it's second place on metal. Currently second place on metal, it's actually a lacquer, and it's the only lacquer I have on here so far. That's the only reason why it's second place, is Vallejo liquid metal, which was actually quite nice. However, it's not great. Still, you can see it has problems, like all Vallejo products do. And yeah, it's very good. I do like it, but it has its own problems. It's a urethane base. Pro Acryl, the only one that gets second place is their light gold. Their deep gold, which I also have, I would try to get 3 of each gold, as you can see here on my Turbo Dork side. Try to get 3 of each gold and compare the two, or compare all 3, see which has finer particle sizes, if it's good for highlighting the other one, etc., etc., etc. A lot of reasons why I do it. That light gold is really nice. And I do admit it. I do think it's a decent gold, but it's also currently the second one I think is the nicest. Because a lot of these failed miserably. Golden is third place. Golden has to be in top 3. It's just the case. Their brass is really nice. Their iridescent gold isn't my favorite, but it's pretty nice. But their bronze, not brass. Bronze is fantastic. Love it. Very nice. And I use that as a replacement for gold all the time. And people don't know the difference between the two. The worst is a tie for mica. Daler-Rowney, to nobody's shock, and P.H. Martin. P.H. Martin is an alcohol ink, and Daler-Rowney is a water-based ink. P.H. Martin's pigmentation was abysmally low, just like Daler-Rowney, and Daler-Rowney was gritty and chunky as well. It was terrible. It has horrible opacity. It doesn't want to cover anything. Its coverage is also terrible. I had to use more on this little swatch here than most of these other inks. I try to make sure that everything is standardized at 1 drop out of a pipette, which it easier said than done. Try to measure it out as well. Try to make sure everything's roughly the same as best as I can make it. But sometimes you just can't. And, you know, you can't be perfect with it. Even though I try. But that's the end of this. In a different video, I will talk more about different brands here. And like P3, Citadel, what I think of them, stuff like that. This is just the introduction to this all. And hopefully you watched it to the end, because I want the viewer interaction for my metrics. All right. Bye. Something, I guess.